Hey everybody, it's Eddie here, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing how my wife and I paid off $71,994.15 of student loan debt within a year. And so in one of my videos, my bird, Wilbur, was extremely popular, so we're going to feature him again in this video, and hopefully he stays on my shoulder. Let's see what he does. Oh. He'll come back later. He usually kind of roams around wherever he wants to go and then comes back when he's done. I hope that this video is helpful and brings a lot of value to those that are trying to either pay off their student loans or pay any large amount of debt in a short amount of time. I know it can seem impossible. I know it can seem like, when am I going to ever pay this off? But I hope that this video can bring some perspective on the things that you could possibly do to tackle your debt. The first tip is to have another source of income. I know you've probably heard this many times, but oftentimes people think that it's a budget and saving problem. For me, I view it as an income problem. Let's just say that your income is $2,500 a month, right? For us, if we were to live off $2,500 a month, that would be a big issue because that is just our rent and bills. So the primary focus should be increasing your income. That way, after you pay it off all your expenses and everything, you're able to save on the side and pay off your debt more. This really might mean taking a job you don't want to take or working at another job, even if it requires more energy and time. I run a small screen printing business from home, but still that could be enough, but we wanted to accelerate the process of paying off our debt. So I took on another side hustle with Amazon. That brought an extra $19,500 within the 7 months that I was doing it. Did I enjoy doing it? No, I didn't. I think there were so many times where I would just be on my computer, typing things up, taking photos, writing, like it was a lot of work. And I remember telling Stella, like, I don't like, this is such meaningless work. But at the same time, I look back and I'm like, wow, we paid off our student loans $20,000 faster just because I had to hang in there for the past 7 months. Stella was working 2 jobs and she would also look around the house to see if she can sell anything, post it on Facebook Marketplace, and we would just have extra cash coming in because we would get rid of things that we don't need. You know, we have a funny family story that my mom likes to share. When I was younger, my mom would say things like, oh, we don't have a lot of money right now, so we can't do X, Y, and Z. My younger sister would be like, can't you just go to the bank and get more money? Of course, it doesn't work that way, but I would reply by saying, Mom, why don't you just go out and work more? It just made sense to me at such a young age where if you want to increase your income, you just got to work more. The second tip that really helped us pay off our debt is to have a lifestyle and habit of cutting back. Also can be known as saving, but I personally like the word cutting back because it's a shift in words that really changes the mindset of how you view money. Because oftentimes when most people think about saving, it's more like, oh, I'm not gonna spend and I'm just gonna save, which is great. But cutting back has this effect of like, I'm gonna still spend, but not as much as I would normally do. That way I could save the extra money. So in the end, it really comes down to forming a proper budget. We would still eat out, but we would cut back on things like getting a soda or getting extra fries or getting things that we feel like we really didn't need. So we cut back on eating out, which resulted us going grocery shopping more, eating home at more, cooking our own meals, therefore saving a lot more money. And really, when you have this mindset of cutting back, everywhere you go, every time you decide to make a purchase, you have this trigger in your mind where you're like, wait, I need to cut back on my spending. Wait, I can't be buying that right now. Wait, I can't be spending this right now. The past year of our marriage really has been that way. So yes, we did miss out on a lot of like eating out with our friends and hangouts and doing these certain things. But at the same time, we wouldn't do it so much to the point where like we're never participating. We would always cut back, have a budget, and ask ourselves like, is it okay to go? Is this within our budget? So when you have that combination of having a higher income and cutting back, that gap becomes huge, which means that you have more money in your bank account, therefore being able to pay off debt a lot quicker. You know, it's important to also celebrate your wins once in a while. So if you do pay off a certain loan, celebrate it, enjoy, spend a little bit, but make sure to cut back. The third tip that helped us is to set a goal. Now, I think the word goal is going to be really important throughout the entire process. How much do you need to pay off by the exact dollar? When do you need to pay it off? What are the interest rates on these loans? Have a specific goal on which loans and debt you want to tackle first. Now, there are 2 well-known methods to pay off any form of debt. There is the avalanche method and there is the snowball method. The snowball method is to tackle your smallest dollar debt first and then slowly work to your larger one, then your larger one, and the larger one, and then at the last would be your largest debt. This is completely disregarding your interest rate and just focusing on the psychological wins as you pay off your debt one by one. The avalanche method is the method that we used, which was paying off your highest interest rate debt first, regardless of the amount. This is a route that we decided to choose because we wanted to save as much money every single month as possible, because we had a very specific goal of paying off all of our debt at the end of 2020. I do plan on creating a separate video on sharing our entire journey of how we paid off our entire debt. So hopefully you guys look forward to that upload. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification and give this video a like if you're enjoying it so far. So really set a goal on why you want to pay this debt off, how you're going to pay it off, and then how much you have to pay off. There are two factors when it comes to achieving goals. Make sure that it is attainable and make sure that it is measurable. You know, it's really important that you don't say things like, oh, I'm gonna pay off my debt in a year. It's important to say things like, I'm gonna make X amount every single month. That way I can be debt-free within a year. So be very specific, right? I have a whiteboard in my room and I would write down the total of all my debts from every bank or every loan lender that we know of. And every time we finish off, we would cross it off and I would be reminded of, okay, we paid off this much, this is how much we have left. And every time we would see that number go lower and lower and lower, I started to realize this is possible. We can be debt-free, we can be out of this as soon as possible. The fourth is going to be my highly recommended one, and that is to listen to Dave Ramsey. You have no idea, guys. When we first started this journey, we listened to Dave Ramsey every single day. We bought his books. I would listen to his audiobooks. I would listen to his radio show and just constantly hear people screaming, we're debt free, and hearing like we've heard so many horror stories of like married couples and older couples that are still in their student debt and like not being able to pay off their debt because of their poor financial decisions and lifestyle. I learned the best from mistakes. So when I hear the mistakes of other people, I look at that and I'm like, okay, I definitely don't want to end up like that. I have to make sure that that doesn't happen to me. So I'm going to make sure that I do X, Y, and Z. So Dave Ramsey, thank you so much. You've really been a part of our journey and helped us a lot. Like the reason why Stella and I were so focused on paying off our debt is because we wanted to build a financial freedom. We wanted to start investing. We wanted to start giving and helping. But it really is hard when you have this debt weighing upon you. There's a passage in the Bible that Dave Ramsey always refers back to, and that's Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is the slave to the lender. The borrower is the slave, the borrower, why is that so hard to say? The borrower, oh my gosh. Oh my. The borrower is a slave to the lender. Debt really does weigh down on you and you almost feel like a slave because you are literally a master to your debt. Like your debt is telling you what you can and cannot do and it doesn't feel good. So listening to Dave Ramsey before marriage, it really helped us accelerate paying off our debt even after marriage because we kept listening to him. We heard stories and screams and God, think. The last tip I want to give is to not use your credit cards. So Dave Ramsey actually talks about this a lot. He's like anti-credit cards. He hates credit cards. So in the past, I had around, I would say like 7 to 8 different credit cards. And I had a really good habit of like spending it, then paying it off. Spending it, then paying it off. So I had this really good rhythm going on, good credit score and all that stuff. But then all of a sudden, the debt would start to catch up. All of a sudden, I'm not able to make the full payment every single month. And the next thing you know, I'm in debt, more in debt. And eventually it became really hard to catch up on my payments. And the reason why I say not to use your credit cards in the process of paying off your debt is because it's really hard to keep track of all your spendings from your credit card, your debit card, and trying to pay off your debt. But when you're able to eliminate the credit card factor, all you have to focus on now is just your debit card, how much money is in your bank, and how much loans you have to pay off or debt you have to pay off. So I cut up all my credit cards and just focused on how much do I have in the bank. And anytime I would make a purchase, I would ask myself, do I have enough money to spend on this item or invest in this item? It really does help on the mental side because when you have credit cards, you have this kind of like accessibility to buy certain things when you don't have the money for. And that is when you become deep down in debt. You know, unfortunately, that's what student loan is, right? You get accepted to a school, you're extremely happy and emotional, and the school tells you it's gonna cost you this much, and you're like, I don't have that money, but I'm gonna pull some student loans out and I can pay it back later. And then once you graduate and you look at the loan amount, you're like, what did I get myself into? Why did I pay this much for school? You know, for me, I didn't come out with too much student loan debt. I came out with around like $24,000. But on the other hand, Stella, I remember when she graduated and she saw the loan amount, for her, she really believed that she wasn't gonna pay it off within like 15, 20 years. It almost seemed very impossible to her, and that's how majority of the people around the world feel. And that is why, according to CNBC, student debt became a $1.6 trillion crisis. $1.6 trillion is a lot of money, and that number is probably going to increase within the next several years. So if you are in college or thinking about going to college, I want you guys to really sit down and do all the numbers, figure out how much debt you're actually gonna be if you're pulling out student loans by the end of your school year. Sit with that number and ask yourself if it's worth going to college being in that much student loan debt.
But by God, they got the student loan debt, and you know how you get rid of Sally Mae? You either pay her off in full or you die. That's the only way that woman goes away.
The route that I recommend is to go to a community college, take as many classes as you can, transfer those credits over to the college that you want to go to. That way you can save a lot more money in the long run. So going back to my main point, I kind of went off tangent there, is to not use your credit cards in the process of paying off your debts. You know, there's a huge psychological difference when you use credit cards and cash. Say this is the item you want to purchase and this is how much it costs. When you go to the cashier and hand it over, the cashier keeps the cash and you walk away with the item. This signals in your brain that you're gonna give this up to get this. So when there is a loss on our end, we become more aware of what we're spending and how much we're spending. Now we're gonna use a card, right? You go to the cashier, you hand both items over, they give your item back and your card back. You see, there was a transaction that happened, but in your mind, it feels like you really lost nothing. And this is the problem of consumers these days. They use credit cards and buy things that they can't afford, and they can't feel the effect of how much debt they're going into or how much it really costs. That is why during this entire process, we didn't use our credit cards, even though we could have, we chose not to. You know, with that said, if you're watching this in 2020, it's an incredibly tough year, especially if you're trying to pay off debt. But one of the things that I'm practicing right now is to stop saying later and take action now. You know, our car got broken into twice in the process of paying our debt. And they even broke into our garage and stole some of my things. And then in March, April, May, the pandemic happened. And even during those times, we still tackled our debt and paid it off. It's easy to say, yeah, we'll pay it off later after this is all over. But what if this after it's all over is the summer of 2021? And trust me when I say this, it was extremely tough. We had to make a lot of sacrifices. It's a lot of money and it feels like you're just throwing money into a fire pit and it's just burning up. But the feeling of not owing anybody anything, yeah, it feels really good, and I hope that you guys can also pay off your debt as soon as possible. But if you ask me what my number one advice would be on paying off any sort of debt, that is just to increase your income as much as possible, even if that means taking an extra shift, extra hours, covering, like just increased income is the best form and best way to be debt-free as soon as possible.
Your number one wealth building tool is your income.
With that said, I would love to share anything else that I might have not covered in this video. So if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. I will love to help and answer any questions that you guys have. And with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video over. Good night, good morning, adios.